Good morning, greetings and hello. This is after a long time. Ayya Phalanyani speaking of Germany, Anenja Vihara. I hope you are all well and I'm happy to be with you again. It's been a while and I used this time to do a lot of things like recovering and we are preparing also for a big ordination ceremony of Bhikkhuni ordination ceremony, which will take place um, July 2nd here in Anenja Vihara. And there is so much to do. You wouldn't think that, but yeah. So now, before I start really to go into it, let's just close the eyes for a moment. And bring the column vertebra in an upright position. If you sit on a chair or on the floor, wherever you are, try to bring your column vertebra as upright as it is possible. And then breathe in and breathe out. Slowly, calm, but not holding it, not forcing it into something that it is not. Just breathing. In and out. And looking at the shoulders, that they are relaxed. Checking the belly, whether it's relaxed or not. Most probably it's not relaxed. That's just something that we Western people have a lot to deal with. That we can't relax our belly, and we always try to hold it. But here now, it just doesn't matter if our belly hangs out and we look fat. Doesn't matter at all. What matters is that you live, breathe freely. Check your face, your chin, your forehead. Relax everything and prepare yourself to listen to Potaliya Sutta. This is a sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya. It is number 54. And I'm going to read parts of it and we're going to talk about it. But first, since I have received in the meantime from some of the people here very nice greetings and also very nice tea, I would like to to the Namo Tassa and give a blessing. And then we start with the talk. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Yata Varivaha Pura Paripurenti Sagaram Evameva Iturinang Petanang Upakapati Ichitang Patitang Tumang Kipameva Samichatu Sape Purentu Sankapachandupanarasu Yata Mani Jotirasu Yata Sapiteyo Vivajantu Sapparogo Vinasatumate Bhavatvantarayu Sukhi Dikayuko Bhavapivadana Sili Sanitsan Udhapachayino Chattaro Dhamma Vadhanti Ayuvannu Sukhang Balang. Okay, now we go ahead with the Potaliya Sutta. It is number 54 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and we're using the translation of Bhikkhu Bodhi, and I'm going to read and talk about that sutta. So, this takes place in the country of the Anguttarapans and in a town that is called Aparna. And there the Blessed One was staying for some time, as he always stayed somewhere, and for the alms round he went out into town, and then there was a grove, and after he had his meal, he went to a certain grove for the day's abiding. Having entered the grove, he sat down at the root of a tree. And also Potaliya, the householder, while walking and wandering for exercise, wearing full dress with parasol and sandals, also went to the grove. And having entered the grove, he went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood at one side. The Blessed One said to him, "There are seats, householder. Sit down if you like." When this was said, the householder, Potaliya, thought, "The recluse Gautama addressed me as householder," and angry and displeased, he remained silent. And a second time, and a third time, the Blessed One said to him, "There are seats, householder. Sit down if you like." When this was said for the second and the third time, the householder Potaliya was angry, and at the third time he answered, The recluse Gautama addresses me householder, and angry and displeased, he said to the Blessed One, Master Gautama, it is neither fitting nor proper that you address me as householder. Householder, you have the aspects, marks, and signs of a householder. Nevertheless, Master Gautama, I have given up all my works and cut off all my affairs. In what way, householder, have you given up all your works and cut off all your affairs? Master Gautama, I have given up all my wealth, gain, silver and gold to my children as their inheritance. I do not advise or blame them about such matters, but merely live on food and clothing. That is how I have given up all my works and cut off all my affairs. Householder, the cutting off of affairs, as you describe it, it is not, it is one thing, but in the noble one's discipline, the cutting off of affairs is different. What is the cutting off of affairs like in the noble one's discipline, Venerable Sir? It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would teach me the Dhamma, showing what cutting off of affairs is like in the Noble One's discipline. Then, householder, attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir. Potaliya, the householder, replied, and the Blessed One said this. Householder, there are these 8 things. The noble one's discipline that lead to the cutting off of affairs. What are the 8? With the support of non-killing of living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. With the support of taking only what is given, the taking of what is not given is to be abandoned. With the support of truthful speech, false speech is to be abandoned. With the support of unmalicious speech, malicious speech is to be abandoned. With the support of no rapacity and greed are to be abandoned. With the support of no spite and scolding are to be abandoned. With the support of no anger and irritation are to be abandoned. With the support of non-arrogance, arrogance is to be abandoned. These are the 8 things stated in brief, without being expounded in detail, that lead to the cutting off of affairs in the noble one's discipline. So until this far, and let's look what we have here. It's a wonderful sutta, and I found it for me very, very good to know that even in the time of the Buddha, there were these people who were so, in a way, you might probably say nowadays, full of themselves, that they got even angry of the Buddha and thought they might need to teach him. And for some reason, I like this beginning very much, because it just shows how we are as human beings, and what we think of ourselves, and that most probably many people would say even, yes, you are right. But then somebody comes who really knows better and can teach you about it. And what I love about this, that although Potaliya in the beginning was very angry with the Blessed One and thought, calling me a householder is an insult. And later on, just really got caught by what the Buddha said, and most probably by the appearance and by the Buddha's insistence, because the Buddha did not stop calling him householder. And he most probably, like any normal person would do, keep annoyed saying householder, naming him householder, but he just addressed him like that because he saw it fit for the moment. And there is no sign of any annoyance by the Buddha. But it is clear that the Buddha understood that this Potaliya, the householder, who has most certainly given up a lot of things, had unrightfully thought that he has given up all and everything. And so this applies to our time. You know, there are so many things, so many people who say, well, I can do it living in the household, and I can practice living in the household. And I'm always inclined to say, yeah, but look, you can actually, but you can try, but it's so much more difficult for you trying to do it in the household, because you just don't know what really letting go of everything could be. You have no idea. And although giving up the wealth and the gold and silver and the grain, and more even, that Potaliya did not advise or blame his children, his heirs of worldly matters in any way. He came there wearing sandals, having his umbrella, and wearing nice white clothes. So the Buddha has such marvelous capacities to catch the people. You know, when I most probably when I would encounter such a person and I call them a householder and they get annoyed, they would probably not turn around that easy. They would just turn away and say, well, this Ayya, she doesn't understand a thing, and she doesn't understand what I have given up. But The Buddha he was, I just imagine how convincing he must have been. That although the man was really angry about him, he flipped around and wanted to know more about what the Buddha would say. And from his appearance, like walking and wandering in it, it might be understood that he was a follower of the Nigantas. So, what the Buddha then recommends are the 8 things that lead to the cutting off of affairs. The 8 things appear sometimes a little different. And it is, in fact, so that we do not really know for certain what the real 8 precepts that the Buddha has given out are. Here they appear to be a little bit more put together for this particular person, Potaliya. So it seems that in the Buddha's time, when the Buddha was speaking with the people, there was not that one set of 8 rules that the people who wanted to live like monks and claim to have given up everything were taking. Here, arrogance is part of the 8 rules. That is not normally so, and I think most probably Buddha knew that Potaliya was really a quite arrogant and self, how you say that? I don't know, arrogant person. So it is helpful for him to include this then in the 8. It starts with a normal thing, the non-killing of living beings, or with the support of non-killing living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. And so, with the taking only what is given, the taking of what is not given is abandoned. Truthful speech will abandon false speech. Unmalicious, I can't say that word. Unmalicious speech helps to abandon malicious speech. No non-rapacity and non-greed. Abandon rapacity and greed. Spite and scolding is abandoned by non-spite and non-scolding. Anger and irritation helps abandoning irritation and anger. And non-arrogance abandons arrogance, atimana. And like a little teaser, the Buddha only gives him this brief teaching. And I think this is, well, how else could it be? This is extremely skillful, because when there is somebody who is like really taken aback and not yet convinced, it is a good way to just tease them first. And if they want to know more, then they ask. And if they don't want to know more, they are free to go, and you don't bother them. You don't burden them with more knowledge. And Potaliya was caught. He wanted to know more. And what follows next is what I find very interesting. You know, I don't remember if I ever told you, but when I tried to bring my mom a little bit closer to the Buddha's teaching, she started to understand what it is about. And she's a child of the Second World War. She lived it as a child, and she had to flee. So when she understood what the Buddha's teaching was about, she said, "Wow, this is like brainwashing." And I said, "Yes, it is, really, it is, but in a good way. It is brainwashing in a good way." And because we need to purify our mind, we need to purify our thoughts and our ways of being. So, of course, we need to clean our mind. And somewhat we need to wash our brain, although I wouldn't call it brainwashing, because that has such a negative aspect. But that is really what is happening, that you clean your mind, that you purify your thoughts. And the way the Buddha recommends to do it is really very simple, very straightforward, and very helpful. So after Potaliya asked the Buddha whether he could explain it in more detail, the Buddha says, with the support of the non-killing of living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. So it was said. And with reference to what was this said, here a noble disciple considers thus: I am practicing the way to the abandoning and cutting off of those fetters because of which I might kill living beings. If I were to kill living beings, I would blame myself for doing so. The wise, having investigated, would censure me for doing so. And on the dissolution of the body after death, because of killing living beings, an unhappy destination would be expected. But this killing of living beings is itself a fetter and a hindrance. And while taints, vexation, and fever arise through the killing of living beings, there are no taints, vexation, and fever for one who abstains from killing living beings. So it is with reference to this that it was said, with the support of the non-killing of living beings, the killing of living beings is to be abandoned. So here the Buddha recommends to change our way of thinking. Instead of just doing what our reaction would be out of spite, out of anger, out of any of these unwholesome mind states, we shall train our mind so that a little wisdom by considering arises, enough wisdom that makes us shying away from doing what we were about to do. We have talked about being reactive as people, and how great the danger is in being reactive. So that when the telephone rings, we run and answer. When somebody insults us, we instantly want to hurt back. So in this way, we are very reactive. And that is because we have greed, hatred, and delusion as the underlying roots. And we're not in a position that we are without these roots. They are there. We can't do anything about it for the time being. We must somewhat live with it until we know better. And for the process to understand better, just right in the beginning to start with, it is very important that we constantly remind ourselves and ask ourselves these questions. I'm practicing the way to the abandoning and cutting off of those fetters, of which I might kill living beings. These are the fetters of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is also talked about the hindrances. And the hindrances are what is coming because we have those fetters. We have these greed, hatred, and delusion so deeply rooted within us that we are in a situation most probably overwhelmed by our ways, by our habits. So it's a valid way of practice for the purification of your mind. To ask yourself questions and to put in place purposefully some thoughts, some reminders, reminders that make you hesitate in the moment when you want to react unwholesome. I think we left off, whenever that was, last year or beginning of this year, with really talking about the breath as a means as a way to not being so reactive anymore, so that we not control what we are doing, but we are so aware and so with it in the moment that we can understand this is unwholesome, so I shall not do it. And this is another way that you can practice together with the breathing. So you have the breathing in and out. That calms you down. And then you have these ways of thinking that you can write down for yourself or learn by heart and really understand. If I don't drag myself into this wholesome direction, then I won't go into this wholesome direction, but follow my habits that are rather unwholesome. So, Potaliya Sutta, write down those questions and pin them on the wall, on the mirror, so that you remember to ask yourself those questions and to remind yourself that you will inherit. You are the heir of all your deeds. And you want to make sure that you have a good inheritance. So the same verse, the same set of thoughts described for the non-killing of living beings that abandons the killing of living beings, it is the same text for the taking what is not given, for truthful speech, for unmalicious speech, for non-rapacity and greed, for no spite and scolding, for no anger and irritation, and non-arrogance. This is always the same text here, with support of non-arrogance. Arrogance is to be abandoned, so it is said. With reference to what was this said? Here, a noble disciple considers thus: I am practicing the way to the abandoning and cutting off of those fetters because of which I might be arrogant. If I were to be arrogant, I would blame myself for this. The wise, having investigated, would censure me for this. And on the dissolution of the body after death, because of being arrogant and unhappy, an unhappy destination would be expected. But this arrogance is itself a fetter and a hindrance, and while taints, vexation, and fever might arise through arrogance, there are no taints, vexation, and fever for one who is not arrogant. So I see that there are hi, to what extent? I'll just pop it up as a question. To what extent do you think this sutta is useful for monastic reflection? I imagine abandoning spite, abandoning scolding, abandoning anger and irritation, and abandoning arrogance might be useful. Oh, certainly. Although this is a sutta where the Buddha talks to a householder and angers this householder by calling him householder. This is all the same. It's the very same for monastics. Also, we ordained people, there are arrogant monastics. There are monastics who have not abandoned scolding or anger. And for us as monastics, this is all the same. We can use breathing, we can use these reminders. And in fact, this is for everyone who wants to enter the path. And this would enable you, would help you to become a noble one. And a noble one is one who has entered the stream. And this, if you do this, like reminding yourself of these things, whoever you are, monastic, lay person, householder, whoever you are, this can help you. If you are not a stream enterer yet, then use this to become one of the noble ones, and at least enable for yourself to become a stream enterer. Clear the path. This is clearing the path because you purify yourself. And I can't repeat that enough time. Regardless, householder or ordained, all the same. There is a follow-up on that question, as these are practices taught to an ardent householder. The danger of renunciants living as householders, even though they have given up a lot, may need reminding that some of the qualities of heart are akin to not having fully renounced. Exactly. What's your name? Difference is spreading. May that be so. But yeah, right. I mean, you're speaking my heart. It is whether that are our householders. You know, in Germany, for example, I don't know how that is in other countries. There are a lot of lay teachers and a lot of people who think they know. And there are a lot of monastics also, but far less than lay teachers or lay people, because there are far less who would need to hear this, would need to practice this. The problem is that you don't want to hear it. And there is presently in this world nobody like the Buddha. You know, Potaliya was full of himself. And if I came along and say to Potaliya, a householder, and tell him what the Buddha said, he would most probably turn around and start to talk bad about me. Because that's what people do nowadays. They turn around and talk bad about those people who they do not agree with. and that most probably out of arrogance. But the time is as it is, and I think this is a very, very important sutta. There are monastics living like householders, touching money, for example, eating in the evening. We, thankfully, don't have to do this here in a monastery. But I know there are monastics out there who are living in circumstances where it seems not possible for them to live otherwise. So to think in any case that you have given up a lot when you have given up a little, and when you have not given up anger yet, when you have not given up greed yet, when you have not given up arrogance yet, then there's a lot of work to do still. So, where were we? Then the Buddha is giving some very strong examples in this sutta, and I don't know if we have the time to get through all of these, but I think they speak for themselves. So I might just read them, and you just listen and think, consider, and ponder what that does with you. So Potaliya says, Venerable Sir, how is the cutting off of affairs and the noble one's disciple achieved entirely and in all ways? It would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would teach me the Dhamma, showing me how the cutting off of affairs and the noble one's discipline is achieved entirely and in all ways. So here the Potaliya was really caught. He had caught fire and he wanted to know. And Buddha says, householder, suppose a dog, overcome by hunger and weakness, was waiting by a butcher's shop. Then a skilled butcher or his apprentice would toss the dog a well-hacked, clean-hacked skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood. What do you think, householder? Would that dog get rid of his hunger and weakness by gnawing such well-hacked, clean-hacked skeleton of meatless bones smeared with blood? No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because that was a skeleton of well-hacked, clean-hacked, meatless bones smeared with blood. Eventually, that dog would read weariness and disappointment. So too, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasures have been compared to a skeleton by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this, thus, as it actually is, with proper wisdom, he avoids the equanimity that is diversified, based on diversity, and develops the equanimity that is unified, based on unity. where clinging to the material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. Just quickly saying, he develops equanimity that is diversified. That would be kind of, I don't care about that, but it is not a pure heart yet. It is not an equanimity that is pure. That would be the equanimity that is unified. That would be an equanimity as we find in the fourth jhana. So we can't sit all day long in the fourth jhana if we ever can. We might leave. We might need to do things, you know. But still, this is a huge and very, very important. We can just push the things away and say, well, I don't care, I don't want to know. And but our heart is full of that material thing, or of that feeling, of that anger, but we just reject it and we develop aversion, versus an equanimity that just is equanimous about these things. And that says, well, it's a bone. So this with the equanimity is repeated in every paragraph. So you know what it's about. Yeah, I said it. So why repeat it? Householders, suppose a vulture, a heron, or a hawk seized a piece of meat and flew away, and then vultures, herons, and hawks pursued it and pecked and clawed it. What do you think, householder, if that vulture, heron, and hawk does not quickly let go of that piece of meat? Wouldn't it incur death or deadly suffering because of that? Yes, venerable sir. So the Buddha says, sensual pleasures have been compared to a piece of meat by the Blessed One. And our mind with the grasping and picking up things brings us in this danger. The piece of meat is just a piece of meat. But when we're the vulture and have that piece of meat and don't want to let go of it, and others want it, and then the quarrel starts. So we better drop it and at least survive. Mm-hmm. Householders, suppose a man took a blazing grass torch and went against the wind. What do you think, householder, if that man does not quickly let go of that blazing grass torch? Wouldn't that blazing grass torch burn his hand or his arm or some other part of his body, so that he might incur death or deadly suffering because of that? Potaliya agrees to that. And the Buddha says sensual pleasures have been compared to a grass torch by the Blessed One. So this is in regards to the impermanence of sensual pleasures. As nice and beautiful and bright and shiny it might appear to us. It's impermanent and like a grass torch that burns quickly, so does the sensual pleasure. So the first says it doesn't satisfy really. The second points out the danger, like it hurts us. This third simile reminds us of how impermanent sensual pleasures are. So how quick they are gone, and by the fire of it can burn us and hurt us. The next simile is, suppose there were a charcoal pit, deeper than a man's height, full of glowing coals, and without flame or smoke. Then a man came who wanted to live and not to die, who wanted pleasure and recoil from pain. And two strong men seized him by both arms and dragged him towards that charcoal pit. What do you think, householder? Would that man twist his body in this way and that? Potaliya agrees to this. Buddha says, sensual pleasures have been compared to a charcoal pit by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this, thus, as it actually is with proper wisdom, clinging to the material things in the world utterly ceases without remainder. Suppose a man dreamt about lovely parks, lovely groves, and lovely meadows, and lovely lakes, and on waking he saw nothing of it. So too, householder, a noble disciple, considers thus, sensual pleasures have been compared to a dream by the Blessed Ones. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. Suppose a man borrowed good and loan, and surrounded by those borrowed goods, he went to the marketplace. Then people seeing him, sirs, this is a rich man. This is how the rich enjoy their wealth. Then the owners, wherever they saw him, would take back their things. What do you think, householder? Would that be enough for that man to become dejected? Yes. Sensual pleasures have been compared to borrowed goods by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and much despair, while the danger in them is great. I think I try to shorten up a little bit, because there is one such a beautiful sutta. I don't want to shorten. So next is a tree full of fruit, and a man passes by who needs fruit, and he knows how to climb a tree, and he climbs up and enjoys fruit. And then another man who also needs fruit comes along and has an axe and is cutting down the tree. So Buddha recommends the one who sits on top of the tree should just come down quickly so that he is not in danger. So we are brought into danger by other people also. It's not only us who are bringing up ourselves into danger. So too, a noble disciple considers thus: sensual pleasure have been compared to fruits on a tree by the Blessed One. They provide much suffering and despair, while the danger in them is great. Having seen this, thus, as it actually is, with proper wisdom, he avoids equanimity that is diversified, based on diversity, and develops the equanimity that is unified, based on unity, where clinging to material things of the world utterly ceases without remainder. If you want to read this sutta again, it was the Potaliya Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 54. We talked about it in using this. Oh, you can't see that. This, no, Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. And with this, I think for today I will close. I do assume that we meet each other again next Wednesday. Have a great day. Have a great week. Be blessed, everyone. Be free from danger. Be free from danger of the worldly things and all those temptations and sense pleasures. Be well. Bye-bye.